I am going to walk you through how I created this Benefits of On-Site Childcare interactive slideshow by using slides and icons to trigger those slides and preventing the learner from going on to the next slide until they have visited all of the slide layers using those icons. You'll notice that I used custom buttons to match my brand. So of course I changed those colors on the Format tab to match my own brand, purple. And because I'm going to use those custom buttons and it's not really a very long course or file and they don't really need to access a menu, I am disabling the player controls. So in my player, I just turned off menus and controls. My first slide is just a little introduction slide with basic text box and a picture that I found, I believe, on Adobe Stock. It may have also came from Canva. I use both of those pretty frequently. And of course, when the user clicks my continue button, I need it to do something, so I had to add a trigger, jump to slide, the next slide, if the user clicks that continue button. Now here is where things got tricky. I wanted to use icons to trigger a slide layer. So I chose these icons in the icon library. You can see there's huge amounts of icons to choose from. I just chose the ones that I liked, inserted them into the slide, and then changed the color to match my brand, purple, and then built each of my slide layers. Again, using stock photos on the back, and I'm using text boxes here where I have changed the transparency just a little. So this transparency here is set to 20%, so you could see through it a little bit to actually see the picture in the background. So I built all of my layers, I chose all of my icons on the slide, the base layer, and on all of those, I needed to make sure that this picture in the middle was cropped so that I still had white space at the top and the bottom, and that is where I put my icons and my continue and back buttons. So once I've built all of that, then it's time to start adding the triggers. The back button was easy. I just need jump to slide, previous slide, when the user clicks the back button. And of course, the continue button is jump to next slide when the user clicks that button. But I don't want them to be able to click the button until they have visited all of the different slide layers. So I needed an additional trigger. And the problem with adding triggers to these actual icons is the icons are a bunch of individual little pieces, and you can't actually add a trigger to the whole icon. You can only add a trigger to like a piece of it. So for example, even if I've got the money, if I've got the money clicked and I want to add a trigger, it's not really going to work because it's not just that icon, it's all these individual little free form pieces. See, that's just the dollar sign on there. So if they click the wrong part of the icon, it's not going to do anything. So I needed a workaround, and that's where this little rectangle I just drug out of the way comes in. So I added these rectangles above each of the icons, and it took a little playing with to get it in exactly the right place, to have them all the right size. So you can see there's a rectangle over top of each icon. That rectangle is just white at 100% transparency. So it's completely see-through. But the states of the rectangle I edited so that the hover state is still white, but has a 70% transparency. And the visited state is 70% transparent, but a gray color. So you can see it makes it look kind of grayed out. So now, instead of adding triggers to the icons, which was just a mess because of the individual little pieces, and you can't add a trigger to a group, so it just wasn't working. So instead of adding a trigger to that, now I'm adding triggers to these rectangles. So I needed to name all of those rectangles because remember that list I showed you in the triggers panel a minute ago? It's pure craziness with all those little freeform things. So I made sure to really label everything clearly. Like I have the rectangle over top of money labeled as the money rectangle. This icon is representing anxiety, so that's my anxiety rectangle. Made sure to label it all. And then I need to add triggers to show the slides. So I've selected that rectangle, add a trigger, show layer. That's my anxiety icon, so I need it to show decreased anxiety. So we're talking about how it decreases parents' anxiety if they're able to have their children at a child care facility, either at work or really close to work. Show layer, decreased anxiety, when the user clicks the anxiety rectangle. Okay, now I'm just clicking cancel because that trigger is already there. And then, after I've added triggers to show all of the slide layers, I need to add a trigger to the continue button so that it is hidden. So, change state of the continue button, set state to hidden, not hidden, I wanted it disabled. Change state to disabled when the timeline starts on this slide. So as soon as they get to this slide, that continue button will be disabled. They can't click it. So how are we going to make it clickable? Well, we need another trigger. This time, change state of the continue button to normal when the state of all these little rectangles we made. So the anxiety rectangle, the convenient rectangle, distracted rectangle, money rectangle, return to work rectangle, time with kids rectangle. So all 6 of those things, they have to visit all 6 of those rectangles. So we want the state of all of those rectangles to be visited. And once that happens, then the continue button will be set to normal. So it will be clickable. So let's preview this slide and see what it looks like. Okay, so you notice my continue button is grayed out. That's my disabled state, so it is not clickable. Won't do anything if I click there. When I click or hover over the icon, it looks like the icon is changing colors, but actually we know it's just that rectangle over top of it is appearing a little less transparent. Once I click it, the whole area around it turns gray. I have to visit all 6 of the slide layers. And once they are all selected, I can click continue. Oops, I need to move that rectangle back over where I was playing with it. So now my continue button will work. I repeated the same process on the next slide, which had benefits for the business, and then finished it out with a little summary slide. I hope you found this quick walkthrough of my little interactive slideshow helpful. I again showed you how I used icons to trigger slide layers using the built-in icons from Articulate Storyline, even though those icons don't really work very well to create triggers directly on the icon. So I had a little workaround where I created boxes over top of the icons, and those transparent boxes actually triggered the slide layers. And then I showed you how to change the state of the continue button to disabled and to re-enable it only after somebody has visited all 6 of the layers. I hope it was helpful. If you would like to visit or like to see the entire slideshow, you can visit that on my blog, which I will link in the description below.